you have to make sure you're eating healthy and staying healthy and creating healthy habits, not just when it comes to what you're eating on your plate, but I wasn't going to the gym and I wasn't, having my quiet time in the morning. And so I just think everything, God really has been so faithful over the past 6 months. Everything is connected and everything is intertwined.
Hey there, I'm Amy Connell. Welcome to Graced Health, the podcast for women who want simple and grace-filled ways to take care of themselves and enjoy a little chocolate in the process. I'm a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach who wants you to know your eating, movement, and body don't have to be perfect. They really don't. You just need to be able to do what you're called to do. This episode is for all you mamas who have recently launched or are getting ready to launch your kiddos into the world. And I am holding my hand up over here. Today, Chelsea Haynes joins to share her experience of adulting. Chelsea is currently a lifestyle storyteller at WATE in Knoxville, Tennessee. And as you will hear, is engaging, effervescent, and encouraging. You'll hear us talk a little bit about this, but Chelsea actually used to be my babysitter. I think she started with us when she was 12, you guys. Oh my gosh. I mean, she is truly delightful. I cannot wait for you to hear about her professional, her spiritual, and health journey. You'll get to hear what was challenging, what she nailed. And I love it when she says it. You can truly hear the smile in her voice when she says it. So it just makes me so happy. And then the impact that her parents had on her journey. I also just want to take this chance to say how grateful I am for Chelsea's willingness to speak for a little bit about racial injustice and her experience as a Black journalist over the year. I'm sure the balance of processing the events as a Black American and reporting the events was challenging, to say the least. So she kind of opened that door, and I wasn't really planning on going through that, but I'm so grateful for that conversation. Now, before we get to Chelsea, I just want to remind you of the resources page I have over at gracedhealth.com/resources. Whether you're looking for food, fitness, or faith-based support, I got you covered. I have it covered. I really do. You'll find all kinds of things. I haven't even counted, but there's a whole lot of things. I have things like a 14-day devotional. I have on-the-go protein-powered breakfasts, how to enjoy shame-free health by breaking 8 rules, and my latest workout offering, squat-free, strong legs. That's all over at gracedhealth.com/resources. Okay, let's bring on Chelsea. Chelsea, welcome. Technical difficulties, but here you are.
Hello. Thank you for having me so much. I'm so excited for this conversation.
I am too, and I'm really glad that we were able to connect. We have been trying to do that, and you have been a little bit busy and a little bit on your plate.
It's definitely been very busy.
Okay, well, why don't we start with that? Why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself, what you do, what's keeping you so busy, and we will go from there.
I'm just so excited to be here. I actually used to babysit Amy's kids, so this is really where our relationship kind of grew, and you've seen me from really middle school into high school, and you've supported me through college, and that's really gotten me to where I am. And so right now I am currently a lifestyle reporter and fill-in host on a lifestyle television show in Knoxville, Tennessee. And that has definitely been keeping me busy because guess what? The news did not stop during the pandemic. So for the past year, I've been trying to keep families and kiddos busy, making sure people are, using their time wisely while they've been at home quarantining, whether it's planting an indoor garden or making DIY bath bombs and just trying to make new recipes from at home. So that's really has kept me busy over the past year. And it's definitely been a journey. COVID has affected a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and still being in the mix and trying to, be a positive ray of sunshine and a light to East Tennesseans and even my friends and family back home in Houston. It's definitely been a fun experience, to say the least.
I bet you guys had a lot of conversations about how are we going to pivot, because I know very, very little about broadcasting, but I do know enough that you probably are planning things out and planning segments out way in advance. And then all of this hits and it's like, okay, how are we going to serve our community in a different way? So I love that you were giving all of these little like, hey, this is how you can enjoy your time home with family. And when you can't go out and see everyone
exactly.
else. Isn't it crazy how long we've known each other? Okay. So I was trying to think before we got on. I am pretty sure I met you when you were 12.
Yes. I was in 7th grade.
Yeah. I think I remember an email. You sent an email and you're like, I'm officially a teenager now. So it's been, which makes me think that you were not a teenager when you first started with us. And it really has been fun. It's been so fun to see you grow and thrive and land where you are and doing what you're doing. And I know God just has such fantastic plans for you. Mm-hmm. I wanted to, I thought it would be an interesting conversation because a lot of my community has, kids around my kids' age, high school, maybe late middle school, maybe college. And, I don't know about everybody else, but for me, I'm sitting here going, okay, I'm getting ready to launch my oldest kid in about a year. And, and then there's college and then there's like adulting. And I'm just going to, side note, by the way, adulting, like, you never really quite figure it out.
Figure it out.
But there's definitely transitional points. And I thought it might be interesting to my community to hear from a young adult who's, just a few years out of school, who is doing all of the things of getting up and going to work and taking care of yourself. This is also the point that I want to recognize how engaged and supportive and loving your parents were throughout the whole process. And through when I first met you, I remember the first time you came over, your dad came up, he wanted to meet the people his daughter was going to be spending time with. Yep. Go dad. And your mom, your parents were really involved in church. And so your parents were amazing and obviously did a fantastic job with you. I also recognize that we just, even the most amazing parents, they're great. They're great people. But, we can't cover it all. And so I think, so with that foundation of how much I respect your parents, I want to have this conversation of like, what has adulting been like for you?
So adulting is real, kind of like you said. And I've kind of been at this for 2.5 years, and I still feel like I am adulting. I still am fully learning what it means to be an adult. But I think my parents really did do a great job with laying the foundation and laying those expectations of what that looks like, and their expectations from me, even before I got to college, and those expectations continued when I got to college, throughout college, and then when I finally was able to officially spread my wings. And so my parents were young parents. And so I feel like on one end, they were still learning and growing while they were raising my younger brother and I. And, I see that now, and it's actually a kind of beautiful thing. But they, in high school, it was always get your work done, stay focused, stay the course. I was a very busy high schooler. I was dance team manager and president of the Spanish National Honor Society. I was involved in National Honor Society, theater. I had rehearsals literally every day. I had rehearsals at another community theater that I was a part of. And I did so much between church and school. And the only thing that I just remember my parents telling me is, just stay the course, keep working hard, get your work done. And so that was what I did. And I spent countless of hours staying up late, making sure I got my homework done. I knew that, if I was going to do all these extracurricular activities and be out until 8, 9 o'clock at night, I would have to come home and get my homework done. So that meant staying up till 12 or midnight. And that really did lay the foundation for my success when I got to college. I attended the University of Missouri and I studied journalism and Spanish. And so with studying for 2 degrees, I had to take 132 hours to graduate versus 120 hours, which was absolute insanity. And I did it in 4 years and I studied abroad. I did a lot, but that work ethic that I learned in high school that my parents instilled in me is what kept me going throughout college. And I remember in college, I was just like in high school, I did at least 5 or 6 clubs. I was an RA. I worked at the admissions office and I welcomed students in on their college tours. And then I was just doing a lot. I babysat on the weekends. I also had an internship at church. I was just busy. And I think that really does speak to me as a busybody, but I've also learned in my adulthood that rest is so important. And so that's been a really hard transition for me from high school to college and into adulthood. I've really had to learn how to slow down. When I first started my job, it was very, very difficult for me because I was so used to just working so hard and being present. And during the first year of my job, I'm pretty sure I was working 50 to 60-hour weeks. And everybody was like, slow down. You really have to slow down. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy your new city. Enjoy where you are. And I think that's been my biggest takeaway from adulthood is I've been trained for so long to work hard. And now I have to say, okay, slow down, rest, enjoy yourself. And that was also something my parents told me growing up too, because I was the only extrovert in my house. And so I was always on the go. I wanted to do this, do that. And they were like, Chelsea, just chill. It's fine. Enjoy the weekend. And it really didn't hit me that I really do have to rest because my body is reminding me that I'm no longer a teenager.
And so, and it will only tell you more. I remember one of the biggest challenges in my head after I graduated and started a job. And it was, I don't know what your job has been like being in broadcasting, but for me, it was, I got there at 8, I left about 5 and went on with my day, but it ended at 5 o'clock on Friday. And I didn't have homework on the weekends. I didn't have to study on the weekends. And it was really hard for my mind to accept the freedom of the weekend because I was so used to always having something hanging over my head. So I totally hear you on that. Okay. So I want to, because this is a health focused podcast, which encompasses food or, fitness health, food health, spiritual health, mental health, all of that. I want to kind of take the process of you transitioning to adulthood and how you are living it out now and focus a little bit on these. So let's start first with the food. Tell me how, because did you go from living in dorms? You mentioned you were an RA to living on your own. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to tell you right now, 4 nights a week, I would get chicken breast, cook it on the skillet, no seasoning, just chicken, and then get these little packets of pasta, like the Lipton pastas. And I'm not kidding you. That was 4 nights a week. That's what I made for my husband and I. And I never learned how to cook. And since I've evolved. But tell me how that was.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious, Amy. So for me, cooking was always something that I enjoyed doing. I enjoyed being in the kitchen with my dad. My dad was the cook growing up. My mom, I love my mom. She bakes, but cooking.
We all have different gifts.
We all have different gifts. And cooking, Mom, I love you for listening to this, but she maybe cooked once or twice a month, but she had a really demanding job. So my mom would be at work from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., 7 p.m., but my dad worked from home my entire life. So he'd pick us up from school. He packed our lunches. He made us breakfast in the morning. He made dinner during the week. And so on the weekends, now my mom did cook on the weekends. She was a breakfast connoisseur. So we would have breakfast and
Oh,
brunch.
yes.
And then Sunday dinners when she felt like throwing down in the kitchen. But for the most part, it was my dad. And we had this rule in the house where if you cooked, you didn't have to clean. And I hated cleaning. So I would cook in the mornings. My dad and I would cook, and my brother and my mom would clean. And so it worked for us. And so I learned how to cook at a really early age. I learned, your basics, your eggs, your bacon. We made cinnamon rolls and that sort of thing. But then my grandmother and my dad are also from Barbados. And so we'd go to my grandmother's house after school during the week, and she'd cook different island foods. And I grew up eating pudding and sauce and saltfish and ackee and jerk chicken and shepherd's pie, Bayesian style. Bayesian is what we call people from Barbados, Barbadians, but also Bayesians. And so I was really exposed to food at such an early age. And so I knew how to cook a few different things. So when I got to college, after being an RA, I studied abroad in Spain. And so I had an apartment in Spain. So I was cooking every week in Spain. We'd go to the grocery store, and oh my gosh, we went to the grocery store maybe every day because you'd buy your food fresh. You'd spend maybe €5 and get all of your meat, your veggies. And we just went to the store, came back, cooked. And so that really, set me up for success when I got back from my senior year of college and I had to cook. Now, one thing I wish I had saved more money and cooked more in college, but you're in college, you're young.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, we're going to eat out here tonight, and we're going to go do this tomorrow, or we're going to do that. But I really didn't have an issue with that transitional period until I got to Knoxville. And so it was here that I realized, oh snap, I'm spending way too much money on food. I'm going to the grocery store, I'm buying all of this food to cook, and it's going bad because I'm cooking.
Because it's more fun to go out, and
It's more
you don't
fun
have
to
to
go out.
Exactly.
So I've definitely had to learn how to budget a little bit better and be more intentional and practical about, okay, if I know I'm going to have a really long week at work, it's going to be cheaper for me to go to Chick-fil-A 2 times a week and pick up a rotisserie chicken. But if I'm at home, girl, you can cook all your meals, take them to lunch, take them to work, pack up your lunch. And so it's just about knowing and preparing for the week ahead. So
yeah, that's so true. And I feel like the preparation makes a huge impact, at least for me. Like, okay, this is going to be the week and this is what we're going to do. And how am I going to prepare? Yeah. How am I going to prepare for that? Okay. So one thing that has been interesting to watch, from afar, obviously, is you have been on a bit of a transformative health journey lately. And I would love to, if you could share a little bit about that and what you've learned from that.
Yeah. So my health journey I've actually had a few different gut health issues. And so that actually started my freshman year of high school, or freshman year of college, excuse me. And I was just not eating. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want food. And so we came home that summer. I went to go see a GI doctor. I lost 20 pounds. He did an upper GI scope, and he was just like, oh, you have IBS and a hernia. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I do? What does that mean? And he was like, oh, you just need to figure out your trigger foods. And so I've been learning what my trigger foods were, that sort of thing. I started taking all sorts of different health supplements, and it just seemed like my gut health issues sort of slowly dissipated and went away. And then they really kind of went away after I got to Spain, and everything was just fresh, and I was just eating healthier and eating better. And so I've been very mindful of what I've eaten, over the past few years. But all these issues started to flare up and pop up again after I moved to Knoxville. And so we're just trying to figure out what's going on. Hopefully this isn't, TMI, but I have my doctor said I had IBS, so I wasn't going to the bathroom, and I'm drinking all this water. I'm eating healthy, but my stomach is still swelling up. I look 9 months pregnant on the regular basis. I was just in a lot of pain and didn't know what was going on. So I started to cut gluten out of my diet, and that really, really helped a lot, right? So I cut gluten out. I was still having some occasional and random flare ups. So we've been trying to figure out what's going on, what's happening. And, I've still really don't know what's going on, but I can definitely say that stress and sleep are all attributed to your gut health. And so I have been very intentional over the past year to make sure that I'm going to bed on time. I'm working out, because if I'm not working out, my stress levels are really high. I will see my stomach just blow up and get big and just be stressed. And you don't want a stressed gut. So more specifically, this more recent transformational journey, I had actually gotten into a relationship, and I was kind of looking good for myself. But I'm like, okay, you got to take a little bit extra care there. And, that relationship happened for about 6 months or so. And then it came to an end. And I went through a breakup and I lost 10 pounds. It started with breakup weight, and that 9 pounds turned into 15, and that 15 turned into 24, and that 24 turned into 30. And I just feel so good. I feel so healthy. I am the healthiest I've probably ever been. I'm very intentional about what I'm eating, because again, it was in that moment, or in those moments, I didn't know what to do. I think most people, this was my first experience with, relationships. I hadn't really been in one throughout high school or throughout college. So this is my first real relationship. And it caught me off guard. And so it really shifted everything and put it in perspective for me. And, we're talking about health, but health really is healthy communication, healthy relationships, healthy food, healthy habits. And that was a turning point for me. And I have been the healthiest I have been in all aspects of everything. And I've even, I am on TV every single day, and people have been writing in like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? You look so good. And I go back and I look at pictures now, and I had a segment called Chow with Chelsea. And my Chow with Chelsea, I go to different restaurants, eat a lot of food. And I got to Knoxville, and I'm eating at these different restaurants every single week. People are sending me home with 4 and 5 different plates of food. So I was just eating and eating and eating and gaining weight. And I didn't realize I had gained all this weight. And I'm like, wow, you were stressed. You weren't paying attention. You were enjoying yourself. And it's okay to be happy, because I was very happy. But you have to make sure you're eating healthy and staying healthy and creating healthy habits, not just when it comes to what you're eating on your plate, but I wasn't going to the gym, and I wasn't, having my quiet time in the morning. And so I just think everything, God really has been so faithful over the past 6 months, but everything is connected and everything is intertwined.
Oh, yeah. You bring up so many good things. And it's funny, as you were talking, I wrote down, okay, what does health mean to you? But then you then you got there. And I love that you have such a holistic view about it, because it's not just what you eat. It's not just getting to the gym, but it's all of these things combined, which is, God didn't silo us into all of these different things, right? Like he created us whole, and there's so many different components. And just as a side note, I had a functional medicine doctor on the show a few months ago, and I'll put the link in the bottom, or at the show notes. But he talked all about the gut microbiome, and so the things that you're talking about, Chelsea, are absolute confirmation of what he was talking about. He was like stress and sleep, and like in the variety of foods that you eat. I mean, those all contribute to your healthy gut. It's not just eat this one thing and then it'll get fixed. Yeah. Well, okay. So you mentioned being you are in front of the camera a lot. And what is that like? Because I've never done anything like that before.
Oh my gosh. I think for me I get this question a lot, but for me it's normal and it's natural. And I think that's such a I don't know, that might be weird for people to hear, but I mean, just like how everyone gets up and goes to work, like that's my job. And so I don't really think of it like that anymore. And it's also something that I've just done for so long. I'm a theater kid, and so I was started doing theater and shows and performances from the time I was 4. I did community theater. I did theater in high school. And then I decided to shift and switch to journalism when I got to college. But I also did the newscast at church from the time I was in 6th grade up through, high school. But one thing that's definitely different in my adulthood is that we have, especially over the past 2 to 4 years, I will definitely say that a lot of journalists, and I have journalistic ethics, but there's been a lot of tension and racial tension in our world, and just a lot of back and forth. And you hear people will group and say, oh, the media this, or the media didn't do this, or the media didn't do that. And I think now more than ever, it's just been we just have to be cognizant of what we do and what we say. And so not just the physical pressures of constantly looking good and constantly making sure you don't have a hair out of place, or your lipstick is the right color and it matches your shoes, or it's about, I've had to really pull back and recognize and say, okay, and I can talk about this because I'm a believer and this is a faith-based podcast, but I really had to pull back and say, okay, if I mess up or if I have a hair out of place, it's fine. I am an imperfect human, and I need the people at home watching to know that I'm imperfect. And if I have a bad day, if I have an off day, it's okay. I'm gonna get back up, go to work, and do the same thing over again, and just try to be 1% better than I was the day before. And so it is a lot of pressure being on TV every day. People are watching you. They're going to let you know whether they liked your hair, and they're going to let you know if they hated your shoes. And it has a lot of its perks with being on TV, and it's cool because you get to meet a lot of people in the community and you get to tell a lot of cool stories, but it's my job and I love my job. And so it just allows me to continue to be human. And I just hope that people, when y'all are at home watching us, that y'all recognize we're human too.
That's so true. And I think it is really easy to bundle up, oh, the media and, or journalists or something like that. One of my really good friends is a journalist. And so I've been able to learn some just from her. I can imagine that you feel somewhat under attack sometimes because there has been a lot of tension. And I'm wondering, Chelsea, can we dig into something you talked about with the racial tension? Because as a woman in journalism and as a Black woman in journalism, I have to imagine that space, particularly, I mean, it's always there, right? But particularly this past summer of 2020 had to have been very difficult in terms of the news and what was going on, and maybe your personal feelings and how, and if that translated to the camera. And I know that I don't even understand all the complexities of it, but how do you feel about letting us in a little bit on that experience?
Oh yeah, I can open up my window and invite y'all into my home. But it was definitely a tough year, especially for me. I personally, so just to give y'all a little bit, I've shared that I work on a lifestyle show. And so when we talk lifestyle, we're not talking about police brutality and racial injustice. And we are talking about sunshine and rainbows and manicures and pedicures. And so there were several moments I can just think of sitting in my office, where we're watching Capitol riots and impeachment trials and George Floyd's service, and we're watching news break of Jacob Blake. And there's just so many moments I can think of, and we're off air because we're not breaking news. We're not local breaking news. We are talking lifestyle journalism pieces. And I think as a Black woman, I've had moments where I have felt just so helpless. Like, I can't do anything. I can't speak out. I think ethically, if you follow your local reporters or your local journalists, I know a lot of my timeline is full of Black journalists and full of people that I follow just to keep up with what's going on in their different prospective cities. But they were able to, again, we have to report the facts. Ethically, we have to report the facts. But going through this election cycle and watching debates, and it was like this year for the first time, I wouldn't say ethics went out the door, right? Because I don't think ethics went out the door, but this is the perfect example. There was a meme going around and it said, we can disagree about pizza toppings, but we can't disagree about racism. And so it was this year that I recognized, oh, it's not even about ethics anymore. It's about humanity. And it's about recognizing that there are some people in our world who justified a lot of what was going on. They're essentially justifying police brutality. Never is that justifiable, no matter if you're white, Black, brown, purple, orange. And so it was really hard to sit back and watch, because we do have to control what we say, and we do have to watch what we say. And, more eyes were on a lot more Black reporters, or at least that's what my lens was, because that's my community. That's what I know. That's my environment as a reporter. And so it was a very, very hard season. I think we had to have hard conversations. I think I had to fight for a lifestyle perspective of these conversations. How can we sit down with a psychologist and have these lifestyle-esque pieces air where white moms are dealing with how to have these hard conversations, and Black moms are dealing with how to have these hard conversations with, their kids. And so I think I've enjoyed being able to step back and say, okay, how can I continue to have a voice in this world and in this realm of lifestyle and entertainment journalism, but still continue to walk and operate and be all that I am in my Blackness. And it was a hard space to navigate, but I think we've learned a lot. I think we've grown a lot. I think it's opened the door for a lot of difficult conversations. And so it's been good, but it definitely was a difficult season for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure that was. And especially when you have to be so careful about the words, not only that you say on air, but on social media. And I mean, you have more eyes and ears on you than most. And I think that probably my guess is most journalists feel that, but then add the tension that we had over the past summer. And, quite honestly, it's been there, right? I mean, for hundreds of years, but I can only imagine that you felt that more acutely, and dealing with your own emotions with that at the same time had to have been really difficult. So I honor you in your process through that. And
thank you.
My only hope is, like you said, the door has been open. We're having more conversations. We are taking the steps that we can individually and as a group to racial reconciliation and justice, because we've got a long way to go for sure.
We do have a long way to go.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, we do. Getting back, sorry about that tangent, but you opened that door. So I had to go walk through it. And thank you for doing that with me.
Absolutely.
You had mentioned and have mentioned that your faith is important to you. I know you're a believer. Talk to me a little bit about what the process has been like for either finding a church or finding a small group or a faith family, however that has transpired in your role as you have entered into the adulting process.
Yeah, that's That's a great question. So I grew up at a predominantly Black church, a mega church in Houston. And so when I got to college, I knew I still wanted to go to a Black church. And so I started going to a Black church, and I just was not being spiritually fed at this church. And so the Lord was like, Chelsea, I need you to go. And I was like, no, but I like it. Like, all of my friends go here. And I just kept fighting him on that. I was fighting him. And so I ended up switching churches. And I went to a church in Columbia, Missouri, where I went to school. And God was just like, I'm taking you out of that space right now, that space of comfort. And so I went to a church that was predominantly white. And there were not a lot of Black people there. There aren't a lot of Black people in Columbia, Missouri to begin with. But I ended up going to this church for a couple of months. I started volunteering in their children's ministry. And then I studied abroad, and I came back and I sent an email letting them know that I was coming back, and they were like, oh, great. We want to hire you on as an intern. It's like, wait, what? So then I started interning at this church, and I enjoyed the teaching, and I sometimes felt uncomfortable because you are the minority in the situation, but I loved what I was doing at this church, and I was leading praise and worship for kids like 2 years old up until 5th grade. And so I did that for a year. And when I was there were so many families that had adopted biracial children or children from different countries that had darker skin. And so I was just able to really connect with those parents, and we were able to continue to have those conversations at first. So when I got to Knoxville, I was like, okay, cool. I'm ready to go back to a Black church. Lord, show me what church I need to go to. And then I ended up at not a Black church again, but the church that I ended up at, I knew that was important to me, and I knew diversity was important to me. And I know that heaven isn't going to be all white, or heaven isn't going to be all Black. I found a church that looked exactly what I thought heaven was going to look like. And so the lead pastor there, him and his wife are white, but then we had their children's ministry pastor, as well as their minister of music. They were Black. The associate pastor was white, but his wife was Filipino and Black. And so it was just a good mix of people. I met 8 or 9 Black families that they have just been, oh my gosh, just incredible support here in my community. A lot of the women became my big sisters. Their husbands became my uncles. Their kids became my brothers and sisters. And so that was just a really, really good experience for me. I still was able to get and serve. One thing about Knoxville that's really interesting is their young adult demographic. It's different if you're either at college at UT, at University of Tennessee, or you're 35 and older and married with kids. And so that was kind of difficult finding and building community. So that community really came outside of church. But I think finding a church, you have to be open. You have to be willing to try something new. And you have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone. And so I think I did that here. For me, praise and worship is huge. So I wanted to go somewhere where I knew that the Holy Spirit was in the building, was moving, and that was what I did. And so I found this church, and I found community, and I found people who really just cared for me and made sure that, I was okay spiritually, and that I was okay physically. And, I joined our small groups, and I was able to connect with different people. I led a small group, and I think church is really what allowed for a lot of my growth here in Knoxville. And so finding a church can be difficult, but once you find that church, it gives you a lot of freedom and peace. So
That's great. And I have to say, I feel like a diverse, well, really anything, but a culturally diverse organization, particularly a church, cannot achieve that without intentionality. So
Absolutely.
kudos to the pastoral team at your church because, it's funny, we were at one and we were really happy there. And for various reasons, we ended up switching a few years ago. And I know my current pastor has been really intentional about it. And I think several years ago, he did a little post and he was like, "Am I too white to be your pastor?" And he recognizes he
Mm-hmm.
recognizes that particularly families who have gone to, predominantly Black churches, they're missing something when they come
Mm-hmm.
to it. But he tries to meet them in other ways and obviously feed everybody. But it's so fun to see. It's so fun to see so many different colors there, but that does not happen by chance.
Right.
I mean,
You have to be intentional about it. You
yeah,
have to be intentional.
yeah, sure. Well, I love that you have found that. And I think what you say about, we have to be willing to change and to grow. I mean, I think that applies in every phase of your life. I mean, just case in point, what I just shared. I mean, we were really happy where we were, but and I have nothing but love and respect for the church that we were at. But this is what works for our family really well now. And so I think that's a lesson that we should all remember is the being able to change. Okay, so looking back, so you have been out of college for about 2.5 years,
Two and a
right?
half years. Mm-hmm.
2.5 years. Tell me something that you have just nailed. Because I think
Ooh.
sometimes it's easy to be like, "Oh man, I should have done this. I should have done that." But I know you well enough that I know that you've done some really great things. I don't know what they are, and I'm going to let you tell me. But I know
Oh
that
my
you have
gosh.
nailed some
Let's
things.
see. Things that I have just really nailed. I would say, and I say this in the humblest way possible, but I have really just nailed my job. I think when I think about everything that I have done from the time that I was 4 up until now, I really got to Knoxville and killed it in my career. And I think I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot. There are things that we figured out works. We figured out things that don't work. I have continued to hone my speaking abilities and my makeup and my hair. And oh my gosh, my job was just so, they allowed me to play around with my hair. And I'm going to wear braids one week and I'm going to get a sew in another week and I'm going to wear my curls and rock my fro another week. But I have really just nailed sharing stories. And I can't wait to see where I grow and how I continue to hone that craft and continue to perfect my interview skills. But I think for where I am now, I have just really nailed and enjoy and have figured out the formula for the base of my career. And I can't wait to see where I grow. I think one of the biggest compliments, and my general manager at the station, I was about anywhere from 3 to 6 months into the job. And I had to fill in for one of the hosts. And he stopped by my office and he knocked and he said, "Chelsea, you know, you really have just this air about you that allows you to just allow allows people to just feel warm around you. You make them feel comfortable, they can relax." And he said that is something not a lot of journalists master so young, if they ever master it. And that was just a huge compliment to me. And I don't think you realize, you're doing your job, you're doing what you love, but when someone says that and you actually go back and you watch your interviews and you watch yourself on TV and you say, "Oh, wow, this person told me how nervous they were." And you're laughing 30 seconds into the interview, you're making them feel comfortable. I think that one speaks not only to my the talents that God has given me. But just being able to continue to hone that while I'm in my first job. So I know when I go to the next stop on my broadcast career that there's something else that I can work on. There's something else that I can grow in. For my first job to have gotten this far and to lay the groundwork and be where I am, I have really, that's one thing that I've nailed. And it feels weird saying that because I don't like to brag on myself a lot, but sometimes you need to just sit back and celebrate.
But I think celebrating is the exact right word. I mean, I think sometimes I can't speak for anyone else, but for me, it's really easy to be looking back on all the things I, shoulda, woulda, coulda, and not realize, oh, this is actually something that has gone great. And thank you, God, for this. And
absolutely.
And, I just think that we just need to have those moments of saying, yeah,
of celebration.
Yeah.
I did that.
Nailed it. Okay. But on the flip side, what is one unexpected challenge you had that you were like, whoa, I was not expecting this?
Oh my gosh. Ooh, that's a good one. Maybe two. Can I give two? Is that fair?
Yeah, you can do two.
Okay, let's do two. So the first one, I shared a little bit of, I didn't have a lot of relationship experience. And so in my mind, in my naive mind, I thought, oh, okay, well, I didn't really date in high school. I didn't really date in college. We've bypassed a lot of immaturity. And, I was in this relationship and I still had to learn and grow. I didn't know that these were not even milestones, but there were just things that you learn as you get older and as you mature. And so that was something that was really unexpected. But I've learned a lot from that. And then I guess the second thing would be I am a perfectionist. And I've learned that this is the best piece of advice that I got from someone in the journalism industry, but I have applied it to every aspect in every area of my life. Think of perfection as a steak, right? Steak, potatoes, a nice meal. We can go to Perry's or Morton's and get you just a nice little steak, Some days you're going to get steak and potatoes and green beans, maybe a little surf and turf, get you a little lobster. And some days you're just going to get spaghetti with no meatball. It's okay. And so I really have had to pull back on what this idea of life is supposed to be like, whether it's at work or whether it's in my day-to-day. But I've had to say, okay, they might not get steak today. Chelsea, you might not get steak today. Getting out of bed and just going to work is going to be your steak. While for some that might be spaghetti, some that might just be a snack. I think it's just about perspective. And so being able to pull back and put myself in someone else's shoes, but to also look at my situation and just say, okay, this isn't going to be perfect, but it is what it is, and you have to accept it. That and growing relationally in friendships, parental relationships, romantic relationships, those have been my two big, oh my gosh, I didn't expect adulthood to be like this, but those have been the two biggest things that I've had to say, okay, this is out of my control, but I'm going to grow where I am and learn from it. Those have been my two big takeaways.
Those are good. Those are true. And yeah, boy, relationally, I mean, I think about how much I've grown, when I was at your point and then 10 years later and 10 years later, and it's an ever evolving thing. And I will say, in my case, it only gets better. Being able to, the sooner I learned to just open up my heart to the people I really trusted the most, just the deeper and the more valuable those relationships got. So, I love that. I recommend that. Yeah.
And that's actually my word for the year. 2021, I made my word friendship. And so I really wanted to focus and be present in my friendships. Are you into Enneagram? The Enneagram?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'm a 7. And so I'm always, I'm
That's not
always just,
shocking one bit.
and I've had to learn, I just need to be present. We're not talking about the future right now. We're not talking about the past right now, but I need you to bring back all of these ideas of what you want to do and where you want to be and who you want to become. And I just need you to be present at work, be present in your friendships, be present in your relationships with your family, your loved ones. Those relationships, once you really plug in, they can get deeper and bloom and blossom, and you'll feel planted and have those roots. So.
Yes, totally. Totally. I love it. Okay, real quickly, one piece of advice to someone graduating from college or entering adulthood.
Graduating from college and entering into adulthood, I'm just going to say, enjoy the journey. And that sounds so cliche, but really enjoy the journey. And while you're enjoying the journey, don't look to your left to see what Chelsea's doing or Amy's doing. Don't look to the right to see if, Billy Bob from down the street is behind you or in front of you, but just enjoy where you are and enjoy the journey God has you on. And just know that you're going to arrive wherever God wants you to be. He's going to get you there. And your 20s are hard. Your 20s are interesting because I have friends that are married and pregnant, and I have friends that are still in college, and I have friends who are single and 32, and I have friends who are 21 and engaged. And so everybody's just at different phases and stages of life. So no matter where you are, enjoy the journey.
Amen. Run your own race.
Run your own race.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Okay, tell people how they can connect with you, because you've got a lot of fun stuff out there on the socials.
I do. We're working on socials, and I'm working on revamping and starting up my blog again. But for now, you can find me on Facebook. You can just shoot me a message. My handle on Facebook is Chelsea Haynes On Demand. It's CHELSEA Haynes HAYNES On Demand. And you can also just search WATE Chelsea Haynes. Instagram is my bread and butter, my drug of choice, I like to say. And my handle there is also Chelsea Haynes On Demand. And if you are a Twitter person, I'm kind of a Twitter person, but again, I've had to really pull back and watch what I tweet. But on Twitter, it's my first name and my middle name with 3 E's. So it's Chelsea, CHELSEEEA, and then Olivia, OLIVIA, 3 E's. And then those are pretty much bread and butter there. My website, if by the time this airs, will be done. But it's www.chelseahaynes-ondemand.com. And then hopefully also by the time this airs, I will be doing something new and maybe in a different city. So follow me to come along for the journey.
Got us a little teaser there.
Little teaser.
Well, and we will put all of that information in the show notes. Okay, super quickly. 2 questions. One, do you have a meaningful Bible verse you would like to share with my community?
Yes. So I actually had 2, but after having this conversation, my go-tos are Esther 4:14 and then Ephesians chapter 4, verse 1. And Ephesians 4:1 essentially just says, walk in a manner worthy of your calling. We know that our purpose here on earth is to worship God and to glorify God, but your calling is more specific and it's about your giftings. And so when you know that you have a purpose, because we all have a purpose, and when you know that you have a calling, because we all have a calling, you need to walk in that and know that you're worthy of everything that God has already given to you. So whether you're going into high school or you're headed into college, about to leave college, entering adulthood, or you're a mom, a wife, a spouse, just know that whatever you're doing and wherever you are in life, like God has you in that place and space, even if it's difficult. We know we all go through seasons that are harder than others. Some are easier than others, but no matter where you are worthy of everything that God has given you, no matter how easy or how hard. So just walk in that and be reminded that he has you exactly where he needs to be.
Amen. So good. So good. And finally, I'm fascinated by tattoos. I think people who choose to put body art on their body, oftentimes, not always, oftentimes have a story behind it. So I'm wondering if you have any tattoos, if you would be willing to share it and say if it has any meaning. And if you don't, what would you get and where would you put it if you had to get one?
Okay, this is so funny because I just had this conversation with someone yesterday. I don't have any tattoos, but if I had to get a tattoo, I'd probably put it on, I don't even know what this is called. If you take your hand
between the bottom joint of your thumb and then the top of your wrist.
And then the top of your wrist. So just, like if you were to trace that piece of your thumb, that's where I would probably put it, on like the fleshy part. And I would just put a little trinket tattoo of a cross. I feel like that's a place where I'd rub it, like the ink would potentially one day wear away. So it wouldn't be really permanent, but it'd be kind of sort of permanent. But if I ever needed to go on TV or anything, I could just cover it up with makeup and go on about my business. So that's where I'd put it, just to be reminded of, who I serve. So that would be my little tattoo. If I had one, I might do it.
I feel like I've never seen a tattoo right there where you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ever do that, let me know. I love that.
I'll be the first to send you a picture, Amy.
There we go. I want to be first to know.
You'll be the first to know for
sure. Amy and her crazy tattoo obsession.
Do you have any tattoos?
I don't. No, I just have never felt the need to get one, and there's nothing pressing, but I think that they're fun to talk about. Cool. So I talk about it. Oh my gosh. Okay, Chelsea, thank you so much for coming on. This was so fun.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad we got to connect.
Isn't she great? I just love her. I just did the math. I think I've known Chelsea over half her life, which makes me feel a little old, but that's okay. Ever since that first babysitting gig, she has just been such a beacon of joy. And it's been really fun to see her just blossoming into the path that God paved for her. So thank you, Chelsea. I know God has great things for you. Hey, don't forget to check out the goodies over at gracedhealth.com/resources. Also, always feels a little awkward to ask this, but if you find value in this show, would you bless me with a $5 virtual cup of coffee? I have a lot of back-end costs associated with producing the podcast and the content on my website and socials and all of that stuff. It's all free to you. I'm super happy to serve you in that way. Unfortunately, it's not free to me. So any kind of one-time or a monthly support you can give is greatly appreciated. I want to give a special shout out to Lily. Lily, thank you for supporting your show and for the $5 virtual cup of coffee. I greatly appreciate it. And if that's not in your budget, no big deal. You can also support the show by rating, reviewing, subscribing, sharing. Any of those things are really helpful. What's the one simple thing I want you to remember? This is something I try and do every episode because we talk about a lot, and I want you to walk away with one thing. This isn't something that was specifically said, but I believe it was thread through a lot of our conversation, which is just the importance of feeling loved and supported by parents. So us. I don't know about you, but I have a tendency to question some of my parenting decisions. Parenting is just hard, you guys. It's just hard. And some seasons are harder than the other. But what I really take away from our conversation is just how she felt loved and supported. And my guess, I'm just making this up, but my guess is there's probably a period of time during her either high school or college years where things were frustrating for either end. But at the end of the day, she knew how much her parents loved her. And I think that that's one thing that we have to remember is just love on those kids. And we all know this, right? We all know this, but it's really nice to hear someone who's kind of walked through it and is starting out fresh in a new path and just really embracing what her parents have done for her. So go, Mr. and Mrs. Haynes. You guys are awesome. Okay, that is all for today. Go out there and have a graced day.